And now for another exciting AP Language and Comp vocab video. So in your notes, number 1 to 9, these vocabulary words are from Martin Luther King Jr.'s Letter from a Birmingham Jail and Mark Twain's Cornpone Opinions. We'll try to use context clues again to figure out these words. From Letter from a Birmingham Jail, King writes, "In these negotiating sessions, certain promises were made by the merchants, such as the promise to remove the humiliating racial signs from the stores. On the basis of these promises, Reverend Shuttlesworth and the leaders of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights agreed to call a moratorium on any type of demonstrations." So look at the context. It was said that humiliating racial signs would be removed. So the Christian Movement for Human Rights accordingly agreed to call a moratorium on demonstrations. If they really thought these humiliating racial signs were going to be removed, what would the Christian movement have done? What do you think moratorium means? A moratorium means a suspension of activity. They thought the signs were going to be removed, so accordingly they suspended any demonstrations. The next word is provincial. King writes, "Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere in this country." So it's clear in this sentence that something having to do with being inside and being outside is going on. You probably know what the word province means, and you see the word provincial in a list of adjectives that includes narrow and outside agitator. So from those context clues, what do you think provincial might mean? Again, you can pause the video and think about it for a moment. Provincial means rustic and unsophisticated. It can, of course, be taken very literally, and provincial can mean, belonging to a certain province. But it has the connotation and also a secondary definition of meaning rustic and unsophisticated. And I think Twain means it both ways here. The next word is status quo. Twain writes, "So here we are moving toward the exit of the 20th century with a religious community largely adjusted to the status quo, standing as a tail light behind other community agencies rather than a headlight leading men to higher levels of justice." So the status quo is associated with a tail light. Think about what a tail light does for a car, or where it is on a car, in regards to a headlight, or compared to a headlight. The status quo means the existing state of affairs. So in this case, people are just being followers and keeping things the same, rather than heading change. Twain also wrote in Cornpone Opinions, in the very first paragraph, "He interrupted his preaching now and then to saw a stick of wood, but the sawing was a pretense. He did it with his mouth, exactly imitating the sound the bucksaw makes in shrieking its way through the wood." The sawing of the stick of wood was a pretense. He did it with his mouth. What do you think a pretense is? Is he really sawing wood? A pretense is a false show, a make-believe, a fiction. And the last two words occur in the same sentence. Twain wrote, "Our prose standard 3/4 of a century ago was ornate and diffuse. Some authority or other changed it in the direction of compactness and simplicity, and conformity followed without argument." Let's do diffuse first. Diffuse occurs with the adjective ornate, and then we learn that the prose style was changed from being diffuse to being compact and simple. So what do you think diffuse might mean? Diffuse means spread out or not concentrated. Now, prose you may have come across before, and I don't know if there are context clues necessarily here to help you understand it, but prose is a good word for our class since we pretty much deal only with prose. Prose is just regular speech or writing, and it's usually considered as different from poetry. So people write neither poetry or prose. Prose you're looking at right now. This sentence is prose, and prose you're listening to right now. My voice is prose. And I think those are the last two words. Nope, one more. Twain also wrote, "We all do no end of feeling, and we mistake it for thinking, and out of it we get an aggregation which we consider a boon. Its name is public opinion." For this one, I think the context clue is in the word its. So its refers back to the aggregation. This aggregation's name is public opinion. So using your knowledge of the essay as a whole, and just the idea of public opinion, what do you think an aggregation is? You may have used this word in chemistry labs too. An aggregation is the collecting of units or parts into a mass or whole. And finally, there's one more word. Twain finishes his essay with this statement: "In our late canvass, half of the nation passionately believed that in silver lay salvation, the other half as passionately believed that that way lay destruction." So by canvassing, they're determining how both halves of the nation feel. What do you think canvassing means in this instance? Canvass means to go through in order to determine opinions or statements. Canvass is often used to talk about voting, going out to solicit votes, or other political opinions. And that's it for today. Make sure you have these 9 words in your notes, and we'll have a quiz on them shortly.